I thank you for clicking on this video and joining me today. My name is Elliot and you're watching Freelance Duck Hunting. And I am here today for a very special video. I felt a little self-conscious about doing this. I still do, but I'm here with Bobby Hayes of Ducklander Calls, and he's going to help me with my calling today. How are you doing, Bobby?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit just about yourself and your call history?
So my name is Bobby Hayes. I own the Ducklander Call Company, and I am coming up on 20 years of call making. So we make acrylic, I make molded, make wood, make about everything.
Right. And there will be links in the description if you want to check out all of Bobby's products. So just to give you guys a little bit of history of how I ended up here, Bobby lives in my area. We're about an hour apart. And I became aware of him from some video series that he put out in 2013, 14.
No, it's at least 10 years ago.
And Bobby was actually the first series of public land waterfowl hunting that I had ever seen. So that's how I became aware of him. And so I'm going to go through a little bit of my calling history with you. And Bobby's job is basically to listen to me calling both on video and in person. And he's just going to help me take my calling to the next level, which is something I've known I needed to do for quite a while. So when I grew up waterfowl hunting, it was just my dad and me, the two of us. And there was no YouTube, didn't even watch hunting videos. All of my waterfowl hunting was in public marshes, not that close to other people. So I really didn't have any way of realizing that my calling maybe wasn't as good as it should be.
Right. So I grew up, my uncles all hunted, and they were World War II guys for the most part, some Korean. And they blew Folks duck calls. Mm-hmm. So I had a little, they gave me a little, I don't know what, I think it was a 45, little record. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know who made it, but I used to put it on my uncle's record player,
right?
And that was my first, because they could call ducks. They were good hunters, but they couldn't make good notes on a duck call. They just had really good timing,
right?
Yeah, but that was my first instructional, was a little 45 RPM.
But essentially, all of my duck calling was in isolation, so right. I didn't have any standard to set it against. And so I just didn't have any idea that my calling really was subpar at all until I started making a YouTube channel. The YouTube duck hunting scene blew up. I started hearing, I had friends come in that were really good callers, and I was getting comments, which is never fun.
Yep.
To get negative comments about your calling. You don't have any experience with that. I know you don't. But it's a bad thing. So I realized, hey, I need to step up my calling.
Right.
And I started really putting out effort to do this a couple years ago. In fact, I put a couple of my call sounds on, I think, your Facebook group.
Yep.
Which, by the way, you can do this. You can go and record yourself calling. Where is that?
It's just the Ducklander calling page.
Right. And Bobby and others there will kind of critique it for you. Now, it is kind of a vulnerable situation. Yeah. I don't know why duck calling is such a vulnerable thing.
Most people that start to call, it's embarrassing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's an ego thing, but everybody sucks on duck calling.
I think it is because we as waterfowlers, you want to be seen as competent.
Yeah.
And calling is a big part of that. And it exposes, well, maybe I'm not, especially for guys like really hardcore waterfowlers, it becomes a whole part of your identity.
It does.
Right. And so that part of, like, people are going to judge you based on how you call.
And it's not something you can hide while you're doing it. So when I teach somebody how to run a call, we got to figure out how to get air to the call, pressure. Mm-hmm. And then we just got to figure out what's going on inside of our mouth. So I try to do it technically to start with instead of say words. Mm-hmm. Words come after you figure out how to do everything.
Right.
Yeah, because then you can manipulate the sound a little more with words. But I start with no words and just what's actually going on inside your body. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you really, when you're teaching somebody, you're just getting them to get the feeling of doing it. Mm-hmm. And then the feedback your ears will get, when you did something right, and then they build the feelings up.
Right.
And they can start to get better on it.
Right.
Yeah. So you're actually, when you're learning to call, you're actually going off the way everything feels versus the way it sounds.
After about, I'd say, a year and a half of trying to make improvements with my calling, I felt like that I had improved, but listening back to it, it's still, I can tell there's something missing. And I'm to the point where I don't know what that is or even how to even move forward.
The biggest things that you've got to get to click in your head is air pressure and the amount of air that comes out of you, two different things.
Right.
So air pressure makes the call sound full or raspy. Mm-hmm. And then the amount of air that comes out of you is how loud it is.
Right.
So air pressure always stays the same. The amount of air that comes out changes.
Okay.
So that's whenever the old videos used to say call from your gut. It's make pressure.
Right.
That's fogging glass because that's straight lung air.
Right.
Yeah. So pressure is different than the amount of air that comes out.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you blow the call super loud or you blow the call super quiet. You're still putting the same pressure on the reed.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's most people struggle figuring that out.
I'm going to show Bobby some clips of my calling from last year, and I'm going to have him watch this footage. Then he's going to kind of give his thoughts on it, and then I'm going to actually blow the call here live, and he's just going to work with me and see what kind of improvements that we can make. Is there anything else that you think that you want to share with people just about calling in general before we do that?
Well, I would say in general, when we're talking about calling, the timing of your calling and what you're saying is more important as far as killing a duck as exactly how good you're saying it.
Right.
So I always try to think of calling to a duck or a goose as a conversation with a person. So loud isn't really a problem. It's how the loud is created.
Okay.
So if you just think, like, you can think about it this way. If you and I were just sitting here having a conversation and we weren't talking and we started talking and I just started yelling, that would be odd. But if I said something and then you didn't hear it, I would say it a little louder. And then if you didn't hear that, I would say it a little louder. So it's more of how the conversation goes than what you're saying in particular.
All right, let's go ahead and let Bobby listen to this clip and hear what he thinks about it. Let me grab the computer here. Now, Bobby doesn't do a lot of public land hunting anymore, but he used to. So I'm also curious whether he knows where I'm hunting in these spots.
We'll see.
One of them you should definitely know.
There's not many places in the state
I think both of them you'll get.
There's not many places in the state of Kansas and Missouri I haven't.
I think you're going to get both of these, but you're not going to hear it off air. You just tell me whether you think you know.
Right. It's not bad.
Well, good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not bad at all.
It's about a minute clip total.
Is there more in that clip or just that?
I just put a couple of clips together.
Okay, that's what. Okay. If not, I was going to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, and if you want to, you can.
No, you. It's a good shot.
It's a late season opener. Do you know where that pool is? This one is, you should know this pool.
Your technique's good. Like, you've got good mechanics.
I thought I was going to kill both with the first shot on that, and I think it screwed me up.
Yep.
Okay, so Bobby's had a chance to look at it, and maybe, hopefully, it's not going to be quite as bad as I thought.
No,
so just from the clips, what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, almost everyone thinks it's going to be terrible. So, yeah. So almost everybody thinks it's going to be terrible when, if they're going to somebody for help. So it's not. Because all you're really looking for is you have mechanics. So, like, when I listen to that, what I want to know is, are you cutting the note off? So that's a mallard hen ends with a sharp cut. If it's which is not a sharp cut, then that's a teal. Right? So
right. Right.
So you cut the note off well. You're putting air pressure on it because you're making it raspy. You're not grunting. So that's
I worked really hard to cut the grunt out.
Yep.
That was my biggest step, was cut the grunt out, and that I worked really hard to do that.
So that is the number one thing I help people with in calling class, is to stop grunting.
Right.
And I'm going to give you the explanation of why it's bad right now. So everybody that grunts, they're trying to make the call deeper or raspier, but it actually has the opposite effect. So in order for a call to sound full, you have to put a full throat. You want as much air pressure hitting the reed as you can make, because the pressure makes the reed vibrate correctly. So when you grunt, you can feel it in your neck if you grab it while you grunt. Your esophagus constricts. So you take the air pressure and now you make the air go really fast, which high tones the call. So you're actually doing the opposite. So the more you grunt, the higher tone the call goes. The less you grunt and the more pressure you put on it, the deeper the call runs.
Mm-hmm.
So grunting actually does the opposite of a person's intended effect.
Mm-hmm.
The rest
so
of the
if someone
calls.
is grunting, and what is the easiest way to teach someone to stop?
If you grunt and you're trying not to grunt, it is going to absolutely frustrate you to death. It is the hardest thing to get out of somebody calling. And what you'll notice is if you give them a duck call and you tell them to blow clean air through the back of the call,
Mm-hmm.
they can do that.
Right.
But as soon as they flip the call over, they'll go back to grunting.
Right. I had that exact same problem.
That is, and the only way I've ever found to get that out is you blow a note clean and then you turn it around and you try to blow that clean note. And as soon as you grunt, you turn it around and go back to clean.
Yeah.
And then it'll just work its way out.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to be high toned. And then you're going to go, well, that's way too high. So, but then after you get where you can just run a clean note that's too high pitched, that's when you can figure out your pressure.
Right. What duck call do you have there?
That is the LT hand cut that I hunt with.
Okay.
So I don't know if you can see
And I've
it.
got the Con Artist.
Yep. So I
bought last year.
two different platforms of barrels. So there's a larger barrel. So that is a Con, a center, and a QT. Mm-hmm. And then I have a smaller platform, which is an LT hand cut, a Mammoth hand cut, and a fuse.
Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and move to actually calling here, and then maybe you can tell me what you think. And what would you like to see me do?
So, like I said, your mechanics are good.
Mm-hmm.
I would like you to learn to call with a little more power.
Mm-hmm.
So louder, harder. And I would like you to bring your ducks down more when you get to the end.
Okay.
So you're making good ducks, but then you kind of stop your hens. It's not necessarily bad when you're hunting. It would just sound more real if you would come down a few more times.
Okay.
So
let me blow something and you can kind of help me understand what to do that you're talking about.
So by doing those things, you would it would make you more real sounding.
Right.
Yeah. And it would change a little bit of your habit on your cadences.
Okay.
Not that there was anything wrong with what you were doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It would just add a little more realism to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What do you want me to blow here to listen to?
So just blow your 5 duck or your 6. You don't have to count. Okay, so I would encourage you to practice cutting the note off harder on each note.
So
when you start, don't ramp up the amount of the air. So just
show me.
So you're kind of bleeding notes together a little. So you're right, and I want like distinct cuts every time. Yep. Now take that down about 4 more times, but you're going to do a shorter note each time.
Take it down. You mean volume wise?
No. So you are doing a cadence of what I would call middle hens. So you're right, and I want you to go. There you go. The pressure and the air stays up all the way down.
Okay.
So you're going to come down more.
Okay.
Each time.
So the pressure, descend the pressure more.
No. As you come down, your note just gets shorter.
Okay.
Yeah. That's better. So you're putting more ducks in the bottom.
Okay.
Which will be more real sounding.
Do it for me again.
Yep. Yeah. So when you practice, you just want to practice coming down all the way.
Okay.
On the cadence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Try.
Yep. But keep your pressure up when you get down to the bottom. Yep.
Okay.
So now,
I'm letting off pressure. I'm letting off too much pressure as I bring it down.
Yeah. Okay. Super common.
Okay.
Yeah. The pressure will step. So you're going to run the same hen from the longest note to the shortest note.
The same amount of pressure from the length.
So I'm
just cutting down the length of each
just
note.
the length.
That's it.
So when I hear you on the video, you're coming down some, but you're basically making the same note every time.
Okay.
Right. So I'm going to over accentuate what I want you to do.
Okay.
So I want you to have a long note at the top and a short note at the bottom.
Okay.
But the volume and the air pressure are the same.
Okay.
So. Yes.
Okay. So I was trying to keep that pressure going.
Yeah. Whenever you do a big long note on a call, and and just hold that air.
Mhm.
That's like running for duck calling. That builds your muscles up and your air pressure up. So the more you call, the more call.
So in your car, would that be something smart to do? Just blow long, hard calls like that?
That's very good practice.
Right.
Because it teaches you how to hold pressure and hold tone. Yeah. So like when you're practicing, that's why I said we want to learn the top end of the duck call, the power.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be able just to pick a call up and make your loudest hen long.
Right.
What you don't want is to go where you're not holding pressure. You just want to hold a long, loud hen. Yeah.
Yep. Am I a little tight there?
You're a little bit tight.
Okay.
So yeah. Yep, you're getting there.
Okay.
So the more you would do that, the call will just get fuller or deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like when I run a call, like that's as deep as I can get this call. That's its deepest, biggest hen. Yeah. So after we learn the top end, everything we do, because where our throat's open and our mouth cavity is all the way open and our lips are all the way open, we can start shrinking that to make different hens. So the more we constrict, the higher tone it goes.
Okay.
So then we can make a deeper hen, a mid hen, a high pitched hen, start making different hens.
So wrap it up. For me to go to the next level with my duck calling, let me see if I got this right. I need to in my cadence, I need to keep the pressure consistent throughout.
Mm-hmm.
I need to shorten the quacks as I run my cadence a little bit. So I'm descending.
I would rather you stated we want to make a longer note on the front of the cadence and a shorter note on the bottom.
Right.
But I wanted you to go down more on your ducks.
Right.
Yeah.
Explain down more on your ducks one more time.
So whenever you're thinking of a cadence is the rhythm at which we make the notes.
Right.
Right. So a typical mallard duck is going to have a longer first note than a shorter last note. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter how many notes she made. Because a wild duck can make 2, it can make 6, it can do whatever it wants. But typically it's going to have a longer first note and a shorter bottom note. Mm-hmm. So to make a call sound more ducky, you need to make sure to come all the way down when you're making a run of hens.
Okay.
Instead of just stopping in the middle of the cadence.
Right.
Yeah.
And making sure my throat is not tight, which I could feel. I felt it when we did it. That I said it's a little tight.
Yep.
So, and if you really want to get into calling and better your game, Bobby has a YouTube channel. It's Ducklander Calls.
Yeah.
It used to be just DLC, but now you changed the name.
I think it's Ducklander Calls.
Yeah.
I know they get to it on DLC 300.
The DLC 300, Ducklander Calls on YouTube. He has tons of tutorial videos about calling. So go and check that out. And also in the description of this video, I'm going to have a link. There's going to be a code where if you want to pick up one of Bobby's calls, you can go and click that link, go over and pick one up. So you want to take us out with why don't you run a little series as we go out of here? Oh, thank you so much for being here and helping me today. I really appreciate it. Buddy. Love what you're doing. And check out the podcast, mine and his. Mine's North American Waterfowler. His is Ducklander
Calls. Just name the company.
Ducklander Calls. Until next time, thank you for watching the video.